Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Wondering Broadcasting News. I'm Allison, and I'm actually speechless. Never have we ever covered something like what just happened. Up until this point in history, this could be considered the most powerful event ever witnessed by human beings. Ladies and gentlemen, God appeared in his power on Mount Sinai and spoke to all of the Israelites. Wow. Grant, help me out here. Can we remind our viewers of what other things God had already done leading up to this moment today?
Let's start by reminding everyone that God's people, called the Hebrews or the Israelites, were treated terribly as slaves in Egypt for 400 years. Egypt's king, the Pharaoh, was afraid of their strength and numbers, so he treated them miserably, even killing many. However, God helped a Hebrew baby boy named Moses to be saved and even raised in Pharaoh's palace.
The people cried out to God, and he heard their prayers. He sent Moses, who had grown up by then, to lead them out of Egypt. The Hebrews escaped, and God even held back the waters of the Red Sea so they could be free. Finally, God defeated the Egyptian army by letting the water fall back on them.
God led the Israelites to the base of a mountain called Mount Sinai. Moses was the first to climb the mountain and hear from God. God said that he wanted to make an unbreakable promise with all the people. If they would obey him, God would set Israel apart as his treasured people and give them a special place in his plan for the world.
Moses climbed down the mountain and repeated God's message to the Israelites, and they all agreed that they would obey God in everything he says. Then Moses climbed up the mountain with the people's promise. God gave instructions for the people to get ready. Let's see if we can reach Riley, who was with the Israelites, to hear more about what happened. Riley, are you there?
I'm here, but it's still hard for me to get my words, thoughts straight. Everyone here prepared for 2 whole days, but no one was truly ready for what happened. Today was the 3rd day. In the morning, thunder and lightning filled the sky. God himself came down in fire, and smoke covered the entire mountain. Then Moses spoke, and the voice of God answered him. Speaking of Moses, here he is. Moses, can you share a moment with us? Tell us what God did next.
With his wonderful, powerful voice, God spoke 10 commandments, or laws, for his people to obey.
Why did God give these laws?
They help set apart the Israelites from all other nations as the people who obey God.
Moses, can you repeat those 10 commandments for our viewers?
Yes, I'll repeat them for the rest of my life to all those who will listen, because they show us the best way to live. The first command is to have no other gods. Everyone must only worship God. And the second command God spoke is, don't make statues of fake gods. After all, only God is worthy of worship, and he promises to love forever those who love and obey him. The third commandment is to not misuse God's name, but instead use it with respect and honor.
Every time we use God's name with honor and respect, it shows others that God is amazing and that his name is something we treasure and not something we throw around with disrespect.
What's the 4th command?
The people were to honor God by setting apart a day each week to rest.
Just like God himself worked for 6 days to create the entire world, but then rested and enjoyed his creation on the 7th, his people would follow his example. And it's not just the Israelites, their animals, workers, and visitors were to rest too.
God wants his people to be like him.
What was the 5th command?
God's people must honor their parents in what they say and do.
God included a special promise with this command. If they honor their parents, then they would experience good, fulfilling lives in the land God was giving them.
Can you give us the rest of the commands?
Do not murder. Married people are not to break their marriage promises to each other. Do not steal. Do not lie to harm others. Do not be jealous of what their neighbors have.
Thank you, Moses. As we heard God's commands, it is clear that they are not meant to limit God's people. God's laws showed the Hebrews how life is best lived, and that's by loving God and loving each other. For the rest of human history, God's people would look on these 10 commandments with great humility and love toward God. Moses, would you like to leave us with any last words?
When Israel kept these 10 commandments, everyone around them would know that God's people belong to him.
Well, there you have it. God appears and gives 10 wonderful commandments to his people. Back to you in the studio.
If you're wondering why God would appear and speak to the Israelites, it's because God cares about people so much. I'm Allison, and on behalf of the entire WIBN team, I'm thrilled to report from God's own mouth how he cares about us and how God sets apart his people. That's all for today's segment of Wondering Broadcast News. But remember, stay curious and filled with wonder.